And for more on the NSFAS funding crisis, we're joined by Professor Ahmed Bawa, a professor at the Johannesburg Business School at the University of Johannesburg and former CEO of Universities South Africa. Prof, a very good evening to you. Thanks for joining us. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Now, Prof, every academic year seems to begin with another NSFAS crisis, whether delayed allowances, unpaid accommodation providers, funding appeals for or administrative backlogs. Why does South Africa appear trapped in this cycle despite the repeated promises of reform?
Yeah. No, I think we're trapped because NSFAS was kind of designed for a completely different time. It was designed for a time where it was very small, it dealt with a few students, it worked very closely with universities, and what we've done basically is taken that model and we've tried to retrofit that model for a new set of circumstances, which is that we have a much larger financial aid scheme at the moment.
Yeah.
And I think that is the fundamental problem, that we really have to step back and redesign a financial aid system. The financial aid system at the moment is simply one that kind of we try to fix up every single year. Now, we can't stop it because it's so important. But what we should be doing is saying that, while we are dealing with the current crisis, that we are also now designing a new model. We have to ask ourselves, just what is so difficult about this? Because at the end of the day, a bursary scheme, and there are bursary schemes all over the world, So I think there's a very real question to be asked as to, who takes the responsibility to redesign the model. And for me, at least, I think it's an issue that has to be taken up by the Department of Higher Education and Training, and it has to be done in collaboration, if you like, with the universities, with the housing associations, and so on. It can't be done alone, and it can't be done by NSFAS because NSFAS is trapped in a particular model.
And just considering that more than 4,000 students remain stuck in unresolved funding investigations, and behind that number are young people whose studies, whose accommodation and livelihoods are hanging in the balance. So what are the real human and academic consequences of these administrative failures?
This is a very serious question that you ask. First of all, I think we must acknowledge the fact, that the National Students Financial Aid Scheme has been instrumental, really, in transforming the nature of higher education in South Africa. I think we must accept that. But that tells you why it's so important. And that's why, that tells you why it's so important to make sure that every student that qualifies for a NSFAS grant receives the bursary at the allotted time and so on. Now, one has to ask what kind of system might that be? And I think there are a whole range of options that we could look at. For example, thinking about combining the bursary program with the central application service that the Department of Higher Education has been planning for years and years.
Yeah.
So when a student applies, the student is told immediately, you've qualified or you've not qualified.
Now,
that
Prof,
kind of thing.
Now, Prof, apologies to interject there, but from your experience leading universities in South Africa, is NSFAS primarily facing a governance crisis, a technology crisis, a funding crisis, or even a leadership crisis? Because every commission review or every parliamentary committee seems to be identifying similar problems year after year. And I'm even more inclined to ask why these recommendations struggle to translate into lasting institutional reform.
Yeah, and it goes back to exactly what I said earlier, which is that what all of those reforms do is, all of those reports do is to try and fix up what's there,
yes,
rather than say, what should a new model look like? So let me just give you a sense, at the moment, the budget of NSFAS is in the region of 40 billion rand, which is, by the way, more than the subsidy to universities from the government. So we're at the stage where the financial aid scheme is a totally different operation compared to the operation it was 10 or 15 years ago. But what we are doing is constantly trying to fix that old model without asking what should a new model look like and how can we put that in place.
And as we attempt to fix that old model then, how much of the current dysfunction stems from poor data management and verification systems, and how much reflects weaknesses in public administration more broadly?
So here's a very simple kind of, indication of just how challenging, how challenging this is. In some senses, I mean, one has to just ask, how can we make such mistakes? Students are at universities. NSFAS has a technology system which doesn't actually communicate effectively with the technology systems of the universities. Now, that's such a fundamental problem, which report after report has kind of indicated should be fixed. But the reason it doesn't get fixed is because, NSFAS is being asked to fix itself when itself is trapped in a model, if you like.
All right, Prof.
So, yeah. May I make just one more
Great chatting
point?
to you, Prof. I'm afraid we have to end it there. We're out of time, but thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, pleasure.
All right, Professor Ahmed Bawa there, a professor at the Johannesburg Business School at the University of Johannesburg, helping us make sense of the unresolved NSFAS funding investigations, prompting intervention from the Deputy Minister of Higher Education and Training, Yusuf Kasim, who has since called for urgent and coordinated action to address these challenges.